hours. My family just left the chat.
It's hard to hold on to people. We still gotta.
No, that's cool.
We gotta continue to try new things. We got table mics. We got the arms off the table, a little bit better view. I don't know
Just lost our pride.
how many people like that. We got one viewer right now. That's pretty awesome.
It's me.
Is it?
Yeah.
Jeremy's the only one on here.
Throwing up hearts.
That's can't see him on here. That's pretty awesome.
Facebook rejects it.
Facebook.
Rejects the arms.
Grant's pulled.
Won't allow it.
So let's do our poll question. Jeremy will be the only one answering it. That'll be great. How's everybody doing tonight, man? Jesse, how you doing?
Doing great, brother. How you doing?
I am doing well.
How are you doing? Great.
Yeah, how you doing? Great, Jess.
Well, I'm not waking up in prison. I'm sober. Didn't have to commit crime today.
That's awesome.
Sounds pretty great.
Yeah.
That's, sounds like a
Chose not to commit crime. That's even greater, because normally that would be my go-to.
Oh, it's-
two now. That's cool, man. Good. Glad. Well, how about you, Jeremy? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Just finishing up my application for the visitor's badge and making sure that I'm doing everything right, even though I know it's going to get kicked back according to Jesse and
Every single person who's ever submitted one?
everybody who's ever submitted.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I'm doing good, man.
That's awesome. What about you, Ty? How you doing?
I'm doing really good, actually. Yeah, I just got a call from the lawyers earlier, and for my accident, and said come pick up a check. I picked it up, and she's like, "Hey, you can cash it at our bank around the block." So I did. First time I got fingerprinted leaving a bank for the amount of money I had, and made me sign a waiver saying,
Great, Ty's bought
you,
dinner.
you walk out.
Yeah.
You walk out of here with that money. We're not responsible. So it was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
That means I can get, caught back up on things that happened a year ago and set me back a lot. So-
Cool, man. The good news is that Taco Boys is listening, and they just invited us down there, and dinner's on Ty tonight, man. That's pretty awesome.
Let's do
For you
it.
guys that don't know, and 4 people that are watching, when we when we get done with our podcast, we usually go over to Taco Boys and eat some dinner. Jesse, he was supposed to pay, but he hit some kind of technicality where he says it's not on him. So I don't know. I don't know if it's an integrity thing or what it looks like, but it's something we're struggling with.
Well,
We're
he's into saving other people $50, from Uber ride homes. So,
we got
saying.
we got all good things going on tonight, man. Taco, what's it called? Taco Boys is in the house. Life is good. We're struggling a little bit tonight because we got the tech rearranged. We got mics on the table now, so not going as smooth as we thought it was going to go, but it's going a little bit better.
No, this is great, dude.
It's
It's
awesome.
way better. We don't have some bar across our faces now. They can see us better. This is much better. I'm sure that we could get some hearts and some thumbs up from our 2 listeners, including myself.
Frankie Connell just commented. He said, "Well, that must have started the week after I was there." No, it was about probably 5 or 6 weeks after. This is actually the first week where I was able to take the stands down and get things set up this way. So thanks for checking in with us, Frankie. Today we're getting into perspective a little bit, and that's a topic you brought, right?
Yeah.
Perspective. What's your thoughts on perspective? What do you mean by that?
Reality is kind of what you make it. It's the lens in which you see the world. It brings you good or bad. If you're seeking things, but it's formed. It's a subjective lens. It's formed by your experiences in life and biases and all that. And in prison a lot we'd say, well, all these cops are bad. And that's what you'll get. That's what you'll feel, and that's what you'll get. But if you don't get that all the time, it's just something that you form over habits, and it's important to look at the lens in which you see the world and see how skewed it is or not, if it's how things really are.
Yeah, absolutely. We always get to choose how we look at things, right? There's a saying, I'm not sure who it's by, but nothing is good or bad until you deem it so. That's kind of what you're talking about there?
Yeah. Sounds kind of like Nietzsche, but yeah.
Yeah, it probably is. It's somewhere around there. I read it on a wall somewhere, probably.
Bathroom
Not-
wall.
Could have been a bathroom. I put it right over my phone number that was written there. Thanks, Chip, for telling me my phone number was on the bathroom wall. That was a great experience. But yeah, man, so perspective's huge. And like you said about, in prison, right, the common held belief, the cool thought to have is that, F cops, right, and cops are bad and this and that. Well, I can tell you what, last week I went to ASU with my old case manager, CO3, Josh Powell, and we got to share our perspectives on what incarceration looks like, and he got to talk about the empathy and the way he practices managing, the people that are put underneath his care. And it was pretty cool, man. He told the class to treat those people the way they would want their family members to be treated if they were in that position. And it was really, really cool, because I know him pretty well. Like, I did probably my last 2 years with him as my direct supervisor. And, we have a relationship, we joke around, we laugh. But it was really cool to see him in that mode explaining corrections in a formal setting to future law enforcement leaders. And he did it beautifully, and it just, even the feedback that we got from these students who I don't think any of them have any actual like prison experience or justice experience, the way they moved, like one of the comments we got back in the feedback was, I'm actually reconsidering a career in corrections now. I want to be able to impact people the way that he did. And this is a guy, he's kind of like us. He came from high custody units. He started off, he was raised in SMU. And he learned, he was trained not to like us too, just like we get trained not to like them. And he was able to make that adjustment in an environment where that's not the popular belief for them either. He changed his perspective on stuff, so that's really cool. What about you, Jess?
For me, how I feel is directly connected to how I think and what I think. And for me, you can take the exact same day, the exact same situation, the exact same environment, and the way that I view it is going to affect how I feel. And for somebody like me, finding joy, happiness, and peace and maintaining that is critical for me staying out of depression and for me not going into a dark place and possibly making a bad decision. So for me, I've got to always try to look at the good. I've got to always try to look at the positive, not the negative, because it's real easy to say, I'm angry, this person treated me bad, it's her fault, it's your fault. I can't believe that this happened, why did this happen to me? Whatever the case may be, and it's real easy to look at everything from a negative light, and if I do that, I'm consumed with negativity. And the truth of it is that, like for instance, if something's going on at work and it's frustrating me, whether it be a coworker or a situation or just, a task, I can look at it negatively and it can just ruin my day. Or I can look at it positively, like at least I have a job to go to, at least I have the opportunity to make a difference and make an impact. At least I'm not where I used to be, and it can change my entire perspective, just how I look at the situation. And I think that's really important for people like us. Like, for me, podcasts in prison was a big reason why I wanted to get involved in this, because listening to how people got through day-to-day life was something that inspired me to want to change. And like, if I'm listening to this podcast and I'm thinking, okay, well, how are you going to help me? The question, or the answer that I would give you is, if you don't get anything else out of this podcast, I would say try to focus on how you look at situations, how you look at people, and how you look at the world. Because the way that you view the world is going to affect the way you feel. And if you're anything like me, the way you feel is important. And I can't beat that down enough. Because for me, I grew up my entire life depressed, angry, resentful, sad, bitter, and those feelings drove me into addiction. And drugs was the way that I coped with that. But today, the coping skills that I use are gratitude rather than drugs. And I just try to look at the things that are going good in my life instead of the negative. And there may always not be a lot of good, but I can always find some good, regardless of what that is.
Why is there not a lot of good?
Well, it depends on the day, and it depends on the situation, and it depends on my mindset. Like, I may not be able to see a lot of good at that time in my life just because I'm going through stuff, I'm in my head, situations, whatever that may be, but I can always find some good. And that's what I'm getting at, is that if we focus on the good that we can see, rather than the negative that we think that we see, that could completely change the trajectory of how we feel.
So when you get in those moments where everything feels bad, or however you're describing it, what's the good you focus on? What's your go-to good?
My go-to good, the number one thing that I go to is that I'm free, that I'm not in prison anymore. Because I've spent 17 years of my life incarcerated. And to somebody that's never experienced that, that might seem like not a big deal. But the fact that I'm free, that I'm sober, that I'm actually working, that I'm not in prison is a big deal.
Absolutely.
You know, because I'm able to choose where I work. I'm able to choose how I react. I'm able to choose what I do and when I do it and where I do it, rather than being told what to do and how to do it. So even if I'm in a situation, say at work, to where I may be frustrated because I might be overwhelmed, or I might not be learning something fast enough, or somebody may irritate me, at least I'm in a situation to where I'm free and I'm able to work. So just sometimes reminding myself that I was blessed with a job and I'm working an honest day's pay for an honest day's wage, sometimes that can be enough. That can be enough to skew me away from just focusing on that negativity.
Awesome. Jeremy.
It was supposed to be my subject, but he killed it. No, it was really, really good. That's a lot of what I wanted to say, you know.
Yeah.
You piggyback on it.
I am, but we gotta get Jeremy in there.
Well, I have this innate ability that when things aren't going my way and I perceive that the world isn't what I can control and what I want it to be, I have a way of altering my perception and how I see things. And what it does is, in the end, is it creates a feeling, a profound, ignorant feeling of uselessness within me. And I use counter conditioning techniques like Jesse, very similar, to alter that perception, to steer me back to the place of desperation where I ultimately just surrender and I'm able to be receptive to the goodness that is in this world. And the counter conditioning and what I'm talking about is the therapeutic CBT kind of way, right? So for every negative thought, I'll hit myself with 2, 3, maybe even 4 positives, because the negative emotional memories that I have stored have been so powerful in my life that they've led me to addiction, incarceration, and I just know that it takes extra work on my part to existentially shift that paradigm. So I literally do everything I can to condition that thought process so I can create a good outcome for myself, and that way I can see the world differently.
Awesome. Real quick, because a lot of people aren't going to understand that, right? People that listen to this. What do you mean existentially shift your paradigm? What does that mean?
Oh, well, so when I can tap into that gift of desperation that ultimately led to change, so everything shifts for me. And I'm talking about like a complete 360, like a complete turnaround, to where no longer I'm feeling useless, I'm feeling absolutely useful, and being of service to my community. It's the type of draw of like how the universe continues to expand and grow, right? Like I know that I can continue to expand and grow if I focus on that sunlight, right?
Awesome.
So I mean, it is a shift.
Absolutely is. Frankie Cano hit us with a really good one too. He said, "Don't let a fake thought create a real emotion."
Yeah.
How's that resonate with you?
Yeah, it's the same stuff. It's the lens in which you see the world. And I was just thinking when Jesse was talking about, you know, I'm free and stuff, and it reminded me of when I was 18. I was in Trenton State Prison, and people used to always critique me because there's a lot of lifers, you know, hundreds of lifers, and they'd say, "Why are you always smiling, kid?" You know, and this and that. And it's the lens of which I saw the world, I guess. You know, I took a 30-year plea bargain, but it wasn't the 63 and a half years the state wanted to give me, you know.
Yeah.
Got halfway through my sentence, and I just saw it as, wow, I can make it through this, you know. Just different things like that along the way. Different people instilling little bits of hope, you know. Officers along the way that just shared some little kindness. That's something that I read on your stuff from ASU and what the students said, and that's why I made a comment on there too, because there's those little things.
Yeah, that was a powerful comment too you made.
They shift your lens, you know, and I remember I used to be of that mindset of F the police and all that, and then you get those kindnesses here and there, you know,
Yeah.
and it does, it can change what you thought was reality in a second, you know, when I have, now I have police friends. I mean, I live with a former cop now, you know,
Yeah.
who's a friend and gave me a room to rent for the time being, you know, and having a federal judge want to come sit on my behalf at resentencing, you know, all these different people that.
Is it weird living with Jesse?
So, the lens is just, it's such a powerful thing. It could completely, like he said, shift your whole perspective of your day, of your life, of value, of anything. Just to appreciate and see what you do have, you know,
Yeah.
not what's missing or what you don't.
Well, the thing is too, I think it's really easy for people like us to say, fuck it, you know? It's really easy to get into that attitude of not caring, not worrying, and just going back to doing what we've always done. And the thing is, especially when you're on a path of recovery and personal development, it's really important to remember and keep your eye on the prize that, you know, you're moving forward. Like for me, I'm trying to move forward, I'm not trying to move backwards. And it's really easy to fall victim to those old thoughts because that's what we've referred to for so long. That was my coping mechanism. It was really easy to say it's your fault, this is wrong, that's wrong, you know, whatever the case may be, and it's just never taking accountability for anything. You know, and for me, a big part of perception is instead of looking outward, looking inward in a lot of situations. You know, what's my part in this situation? You know, why am I angry? What did I do? What could I have done better? And a lot of times when I look at it like that, not only can I find gratitude, but I can find responsibility in it. Like, you know what, maybe I did play a part in this. Maybe if I would have acted a little differently, or maybe if I would have been a little kinder, or maybe if I would have been a little bit more compassionate, you know, maybe this situation wouldn't have ended up as it did, and maybe I wouldn't have found this frustration, this anger, this resentment that I'm dealing with.
Well, it's one of the things is we are responsible for our own emotions. We are responsible for how we react to everything. So, and that's another lens when we cast blame, and well, he caused me there, or she caused me, or this caused me, or that caused me, or circumstance was, but you still get to choose, and what you choose is all through that lens too, you know.
Yeah, this is great, right? So, about 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about like vulnerability, like I love this space because something good is about to happen. Something is going to be revealed to me that has allowed me to circle back to my thoughts and my actions and my perception, right? This is cool stuff because about a week ago, I was sitting in a corporate environment with a very generous salary, and I had made a decision based on my compassion for patient care. And the individual was full of fear with a warrant and didn't want to go to the VA to get their medications, right? So I got the medications. And when I sat down in front of my leadership, one of the first things out of their mouth was, do you know why he had a warrant? I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt this whole flush come over my face. And you know what I said to myself? I'm working in the wrong place. I'm working in the wrong place. And it's worth walking away from.
Yeah. Absolutely. We got to make those changes. We know what's best for us, right? Even though, like you said, you had I think you said generous salary. We've all learned the hard way. Money's only going to get us so far, right?
When somebody looks across the table and says, do you know why they had a warrant? What they're trying to do is impose in me a perception of which I should be able to look at something because of what's happened to them should be judged, right?
Right, absolutely.
And I'm not the one, right? I'm not the one that you're going to talk to me about somebody being just another number, right? And unfortunately, I found out real quick, right? And it felt so good, man.
Yeah, good, man. I'm happy for
I
you.
felt happy. I mean, I'm almost positive that individual, regardless of whatever circumstances, will have an opportunity to recover as a result of people going out of their way for them, you know, and that's what it's going to take. Sometimes it's going to take sacrifices to get you back to where you needed to be in order to tap into that perception again, because You know, this morning I didn't wake up with my drinking fountain connected to my toilet, right?
Absolutely.
And guess who didn't either? Probably him, you know?
Or any of us.
Yeah.
I almost did.
So you almost did?
Almost.
You did this.
No, it was funny because we talk about perspective
Your
and
toilet actually is pretty close to
it's pretty clear. It's a small bathroom.
Yeah.
It's a small bathroom. Guinness Book came by and asked me, they're like, hey, do you want to enter this for the world's smallest bathroom competition? And I'm thinking about it. I don't know yet. I want to take some
I
measurements.
do want to touch on something that Jeremy said.
Please.
Because he just added in there about the sacrifice. And that lens is, it's coded in sacrifice, you
Yeah.
know. If you want to see things, you know, in that different light, you do have to make sacrifices. And it's sacrifices in behavior, it's sacrifices in immediate gratification, it's sacrifice in handling things how you want to handle it. It's sacrifice in all kinds of ways, right? And I did that a lot. My time got harder and harder the more I saw for myself in the future, the more I wanted, the more I hoped, the more I was striving for stuff. It's like, well, time's not easier now. Before it just didn't matter. I could go with the flow of the prison. Now I have a scholarship to lose, and that scholarship might get me closer to freedom. I have, you know, this job that's got me into here to use a computer for this purpose, and if I lose this, all those things, and it was all based on that lens of, well, what am I going to do positive? What am I going to do different? What am I going to produce? What am I going to become? In order to get to all those things, it was tons of sacrifices and a lot of personal growth, you know,
Yeah.
because that's what sacrifice is, a lot of personal growth. But yeah, sacrifice is hugely important in there.
And those sacrifices kind of well, for me, they got easier, right? Like in the beginning, when I stepped away from all the dumb shit that I was involved with in the prisons, right? And I started asking people when they come to me with, you know, the stuff they come to people with in prisons, I'd be like, what does this have to do with me personally?
Yeah.
And, oh, well, nothing. Well, then I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? So in the beginning, for whatever reason, not being a part of the mix and the all that crap, right? That was a huge sacrifice, right? Because now I'm some recovery weirdo.
You're not perceived as one of the cool guys in the
Yeah, I'm a rat now because I don't hang out with these dudes, and you know, the last thing I'm thinking about is drug use. But like all of that was a sacrifice for about 6 months, and then it became the biggest gift I've ever given myself because not one person ever came to me with drama. People started coming to me either for help, for some kind of, you know, assistance for reentry stuff. All that stuff just went away on its own because when you have that perspective, like you're talking about, what you're giving, for me, my experience has been the stuff that I'm giving out comes back, and it comes back like tenfold.
At least.
Yeah, the blessings that are in my life, the things that have happened for me since I've been out of prison, I put a lot of effort into doing the right thing because that doesn't come naturally to me. That's one thing, like at my current position at New Freedom, I'm talking to people, you know, people that I work with, and I'm like, man, these people are like genuinely nice. Like their go-to response is kindness. My go-to response is something else, and I kind of have to force myself into the kindness, right? I'm still learning this behavior, right? Like I'm still putting in that work and doing it, and that's why I'm so glad to be surrounded by people, my friends, everybody at this table, and my real friends, and then you know you guys at the table. But to be surrounded by
do you know what I love about you, man? Is that because I know that you've tapped into that, right? When we are with each other, man, the insensitive sarcasm is freaking amazingly funny, dude.
It's beautiful, right?
It is, man. We have a good time being really super insensitive about all these issues, man, when we're not on the clock, right?
No.
And it's cool that we all have the opportunity to get that, you know?
Absolutely, man. And
Priceless.
Ty came in with like perspective saved my fucking life, man.
Yeah.
It literally saved my
Mine
life.
too, by far.
I was a victim. I had bad luck. Everything happened to me. It was all everybody else's fault. Didn't matter what was going on. And as soon as Tori La Rochelle, man, as soon as she taught me about perspective just through a conversation, like why would you look at things like that?
Well, I
When
don't
you can look
appreciate
at them
you,
like this.
you know, blaming Chip for putting your phone number on there.
But she ever since then, man, it was so freeing because I get to choose how I see everything. And it's okay for me to mess up or get frustrated or see something in a bad light, but I know I'm choosing to look at it that way. Like, what do I want to take powerful out of that? What do I want to take that I'm going to learn from? You know, what's the point? Like, we've talked about this before, where I'm literally to the point, and most of us are here are to the point where we get excited about the obstacles, right? That's where the growth comes from. I heard a guy say today that he was talking about success and failure, and he's like, when failure sucks, success is obviously better, but success is easier,
Yeah.
but the failure is where you're going to learn and get better,
Yeah.
right? And when you're winning, you're not really learning.
Nope.
You learn from those failures. You learn from the stuff that we trip on when we get redirected by our friends or held accountable or whatever that looks like. That's where growth comes from. Growth doesn't come when everything fucking feels great and it's all happy-go-lucky and it's everybody's skipping around the fucking room. Growth comes from when you're crying, from when you're hurting, when you're struggling, when you got to get something figured out, when you got to make that phone call, where you got to have that tough conversation. That's the stuff that counts. That's the stuff. That's the meat that's on the bone, right? In order for us to grow.
Yeah, like you said, something else that stood out to me was you said learned behavior. We were talking about perception. One of the things that I've learned is that growing up with low self-esteem and feeling like I had no self-worth, it was real easy for me to get angry and bitter because I hated myself. And when we talk about learned behavior, I think when I started doing esteemable things and conducting myself with a little bit of integrity, because in the past I hadn't, it was all about me, and I was just selfish at all times. When I started conducting myself with a little bit of integrity, all of a sudden I started feeling a little bit better about the things that I was doing. And it was a little bit easier for me to see the good in my life because I was doing good things. So in addition to the way I view it, the way I conduct myself can also help me view myself in a better light. So when I combine the two, it makes it a little bit easier for me to see gratitude.
Absolutely. I was just talking about that at St. Mary's. We were talking about having confidence, right? I went around the group and I asked, what do successful people do? Like successful people, what do they do? What character trait do they have? And
Define success.
well,
And define it.
Well, yeah, defining it, but everybody that we know somebody's successful, right? Because what I like to do is after I ask that, I like to line up what behavior you have for that character trait you picked, whether it's hard work, whether it's integrity, how does the rest of the world see you practice that, right? That's kind of where I go with that. And then confidence came up, and they were talking about confidence. And if people want to be confident, the only way that really happens, real confidence, not arrogance, not the mask that we put on, but actual genuine confidence comes from integrity. Because I could sit here, or I could be at work, or I could be in a classroom talking all the rah-rah recovery stuff, but then I'm leaving and going and doing all the shady stuff outside of that when nobody's around. Well, that doesn't stay outside. That comes back with me into the classrooms. That comes back with me to the podcast, to the table, to wherever I'm at, because I'm carrying that shame, that guilt, and all that other stuff. And if it doesn't come out through my behaviors, it's definitely at some point going to manifest through my addiction.
Because you become a fraud.
Absolutely, and I know it.
Yeah.
And I know it, and there's no confident frauds. There's arrogant frauds, 100%. I used to watch this fucking guy, and he talked all day long about, I think it's an AA saying, if you want to keep it, you have to give it away.
Yeah.
And he would do that all the time, and he was probably the most selfish prick I've ever met in my fucking life. And I'm like, stop saying that or start doing it, because that shit's annoying, dude.
Because I want to stop hearing it.
It's one thing if you're saying it and practicing it, but man.
You both did just touch on that same thing. Is it's not as easy as just putting on this new lenses and the world's a peach now.
Yeah,
it is.
I wish.
It is about working for it and manifesting it and doing that and continually working for it, and then that lens just grows and grows and grows, and then you start seeing more opportunities. You start seeing more benefits, and you see how it feeds itself.
No matter what, I just know that I have to work extra harder than, extra hard, because I have a hungry ghost that's in my brain. It's called addiction. It's trying to isolate me. It's trying to kill me. It's trying to kill me sober. It's trying to kill me, out there on the streets, messed up. And, that underlying narrative that I grew up with it, that I'm not okay. I'm never going to be amount to anything. That's deep in the subconscious. And it is that reset. It is that sacrifice. It is that surrender. It is that quiet gift of desperation. And then it's action. It is consistent action, day in and day out. That's all I have is today, and given those gifts, I'm just really grateful. This whole process of re-entry in these past 3 years, it's just an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing journey of being challenged by just by the power of your own mind, the prison that you create within yourself that tries to trap you, tries to kill you, tries to move you away from anything that's everything good in your life.
Yeah, it's you. I know for me, I'm my own worst enemy, right?
Yeah,
We talk about people that hold us back. I was talking to somebody today about somebody they're dating and how that person's just toxic and taken from them and all this other stuff. Like, I won't have that in my life, right? But even if I did, I'm still my own worst enemy, right? I'm the one who, I forgot my keys on the table the other day, on the counter. And I walked like 3 steps away, I'm like, ah, you fucking idiot. I'm like, man, if I had a friend who called me a fucking idiot every time I left my keys on the counter, I probably wouldn't be friends with that dude.
Yeah,
You know what I
not
mean?
at all.
But my self-talk, something I got to manage, right? Whenever I'm doing something that's a little bit uncomfortable, my self-talk, something I got to manage. Us being cognizant, having that, what'd you say, seeing the world through a peach? Or I forgot how you said it, but yeah, everything just doesn't become peachy all of a sudden
Yeah.
because we say it is.
Right.
But sometimes you got to just fake it till you make it. When I started working on my mindset, a practice I used to do that I still do that I literally did yesterday morning. So I woke up grumpy. I couldn't get my alarm to turn off. I'm yelling at Alexa to shut up. Nobody's listening to me. And I was grumpy. I'm like, you know what? I went and sat down or went and laid in my bed and I just started listening gratitude until I felt better. Things I'm grateful for, from eyesight to milk in the fridge, right? Because I can get up any time of the night and go get a cup of milk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like a freedom we don't think about. We went to go get burritos that night. Like, we were going to the 10:10 meeting or 10:08 meeting.
Yeah.
And you're like, isn't it nice we can just go get a fucking burrito whenever we want?
Yeah.
Like, not losing the gratitude in that. It's super, super important because I know for me, I have a pretty toxic mind. It's really easy. Like I
Yeah.
said before, my go-to is pretty shitty.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's ever gonna go away.
Yeah, yeah.
But I gotta detoxify my mind,
Yeah.
manifest like you're talking about, know where I'm going, write my shit on the board, do the work, do the stuff I don't wanna do, show up every day, learn how to do this fucking podcast at some point, right? We're getting there, right? We're better than we were, but
Takes time.
this is the kind of stuff that keeps me going, that keeps my mind clean, that drives me every day. I have this saying, remember Josh, right, that I was in prison with? I used to tell Josh, I'd be like, I don't need a fucking alarm clock, man. My goals get me out of bed. And Josh was like, well, your goals sound an awful lot like a fucking alarm clock, dude. And they still do, right? But I still get up and do this and maintain that perspective because it's not something just kind of like self-forgiveness. I would love to say, yeah, man, I forgive myself. And that would be bullshit. I have to practice self-forgiveness. I have to continue to do stuff like this every single day. I have to continue to work and be there for people and support people and do all that in order to honor the wreckage of my past.
Yeah, you said something there that stood out to me. You know, for me, one of the things that I've learned in recovery is, you know, for so many years I hated myself. I had no love for myself. I felt like I had no value. And when I really started finding value, when I started learning to love other people, when I started caring about other people and actually really developing that kindness, that compassion, that sympathy, that empathy, and just really genuinely wanting and developing a desire to help others. And when I started doing that, and I started seeing the light come on in others' lives, you know, just from me taking a little bit of time out of my day to try to maybe sit and listen to somebody or talk to somebody or encourage somebody or whatever that looks like, you know, I started feeling a lot better about myself. And I think that was one of the main things that helped me start developing self-love, was caring about other people.
So you said a word there, one of my favorite words. You said empathy.
And sympathy. I said both.
Can you define empathy for me?
If I had to
Your
define-
definition?
My definition, or do you want a textbook definition?
I want your definition. What empathy means to you.
I know how you feel. I've been there.
Awesome.
Yeah, that would be mine.
Yeah, when you said the word value, I had a guy raise his hand today because I got blessed with an opportunity to host a class all the way from La Paz, Yuma today, and one of the guys asked, man, hey, what's the key to this whole reentry thing, man? I said, you write down the 10 most important things that you value, and then you create your SMART goals, long-term, short-term objectives around each one of those, and you're gonna have quite a list to fall back on and new memories you're gonna create for yourself that you never thought were gonna be possible.
Yeah. It's true. Like, go ahead, Todd.
I was just gonna say, I don't think we all give each other enough credit, you know, personally. That goes back to self-esteem and stuff like that. And you saying, well, I have this perspective and I see all my coworkers, but it's not true. I've seen how you've been since I started working there. But it's all a lens, right? It's a lens we still have now. If you look back on where we all were in our first year of incarceration, imagine what that lens looked like and how we saw the world, how we saw everybody, you know?
That was insane.
So that's what I'm saying. Now the lens that we have today, you know, you said you're 3 years out. I'm like 18 months out, 6 months out, right?
7,
Same, 7, 8 months.
Yeah. So, and that's the lens, and you're like, well, I may not ever see it that way. Well, you will, you know. I already see it for you. You will, you know. And it's so imagine where will we be 5 years from now out? You know what I mean?
3 years, man. Like I never cared, right? This is the longest I've been sober in society since I was 15 years old. These last 3 years, I'm learning how to be a grown adult, to go through life's problems without, you know, having the use of alcohol or other drugs, to mask, you know, this socially insecure individual I've had to live with my entire life. And I'm gonna tell you, I've grown more much in this last 3 years than I ever did in the 10 years that I was incarcerated. That was an educational journey of what I don't ever wanna have to go through again. But out here in the real world with real problems and getting through them sober, yeah, you darn right I have something to be grateful for. And so does my community.
That's the truth. That's definitely the truth.
My buddy Mark from Second Chance, he was teaching a class one time, and he's all, man, the last time I was 9 years sober, I was 9.
I like Mark.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
But that drives the point home,
It is.
right?
It
It
is.
absolutely drives the point home. Like, I feel like I've been sober forever. I've literally been sober for just over 5 years.
Yeah, do you remember when you mentioned, and I don't forget this, is when you said that you were talking about driver's license and you were getting welled up. Your eyes just couldn't take it, right?
Yeah.
Because you knew that this is such a need, that it was such a good thing to do and promote, that you just couldn't help it, right? You know, all those years of, you know, masking this emotional center that was literally hijacked and arrested by the use of alcohol, drugs, crime, all this other stuff. And when it comes into, you know, and it pours in with that perception and this new lens from which you view the world, man, I still get rinsed, man.
Yeah.
It just, I can't help it.
Dude.
Like when a dude raises his hand and says, man, all I want to do is learn, and I'm like sitting here on the other end, I'm like, I've got the resource, and I plug him right in. His scholarship starts January. I'm like, dude, this is the juice. Would that have happened if I'd been in the prison of my corporate world? Absolutely not.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
The turn of events and the things that happen are unexpected if you just choose life. Choose life at all costs. And I love this perception stuff, man.
So
Yeah.
to choose it, you have
Yeah.
to see it,
You have to see.
Absolutely.
you know. And we're never gonna see how much greater it'll be, right? And just
Mhm.
until we get there, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like to think that I'm out early, you know.
Yeah.
I'm still years away from my release date.
Think if I had a probation
You know.
officer as a roommate.
So we
Just like
we have a
kindest, coolest human being ever.
we have a pretty good question here from Justine, and she said the key components to building integrity. What do you think the key components to building integrity are? Or whoever wants to start.
In my opinion, I would say doing esteemable things.
What's esteemable things? People aren't going to understand that.
Okay, well, like for myself, I've spent most of my life not being accountable to anything other than my own selfish desires. And I did not care what or how or why it would affect you. All I cared about is what I could get out of the situation. You know, so for me, integrity is about honesty, it's about humility, it's about love, it's about compassion, it's about accountability. It's about, basically for me, integrity is just about being a man of your word, you know, being the best version of yourself. And just doing everything that you can to just be better and not cause harm along the way. Because for my entire life, that's all I did. I just was a tornado running through the lives of everybody that I met.
So we're talking about esteemable things, right? What do you do that's esteemable?
Okay, so I've dedicated my life to working in behavioral health so that way I can try to help and inspire others and try to show them a path forward and help them find a light within themselves, so that way they don't have to go back to living the way they were living.
Awesome.
You know, that's one thing that I do. Another thing that I do is I work a program of recovery. I mentor a lot of guys. I sponsor a lot of guys. I have a sponsor. I have a relationship with God. I try to be a real friend today to my friends. When in the past, my friendships and my relationships were based more on what I could get out of the relationship, and now it's more about what I can give. You know, I try to actually add value to the lives of others today, as opposed to take.
So as your friend, a way you can add value to me, and I just want to be really serious here for a second.
Let's hear it.
Tacos tonight would be absolutely amazing. Would add a ton of value. I'm really, really hungry. It's kind of on you anyway, so I do appreciate that. But thank you for doing that esteemable thing and buying me tacos tonight.
I would really go out of your way on this one.
You know, I will invite Ty. He did just get that check. I mean, in his words, it was an esteemable, good-sized check.
Esteemable check.
You know, I'm used to $30 state pay, so I'll be frank with you, it's $240.
I don't know. Well, let's piggyback on that. Let's
So
go
that's
around.
Well, yeah.
yeah, we should all.
Yeah, let's piggyback on that. What do you think?
How do you build integrity, Jeremy?
Well, first and foremost, the next step of action is, sending our podcast to Taco Boys, since we've said their names 7 times.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
I think that'd be very esteemable.
But we haven't said it in Spanish, so
Taco is Spanish. I
Justine,
keep having this with
Justine
you.
said integrity equals tacos. That's what
Every
she got
time.
out of it.
Every time I gotta remind him that taco is a Spanish word.
I never claimed to be smart or bilingual.
When it comes to esteemable
Integrity.
integrity, see, what I've learned, man, is that it's okay to disappoint others in order to be true to yourself. And I'm gonna take this to that next level when I say that if my happiness is being compromised, right, I have this innate ability to lose my capacity to reason and make good decisions for myself. So I know that I'm gonna have to let people go along the way, let jobs go along the way, if they're not in line with my values,
Absolutely.
right? And I think a lot of people, and maybe not, I don't know, right? But they'll continue to keep doing that, right? And not be honest with themselves, right? And keep living that lie. And I think that was like one of the biggest things that I realized walking away from this position that I had, was that, man, no wonder why I'm miserable. I gotta be honest with myself, and I gotta stand up for what I believe is right, no matter what the cost, right? And I think when you're able to sacrifice and break free from the fray, I think that's a sign of integrity.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
It's exactly, we wanna go in that other way next time, cause these guys steal the thoughts that I'm having.
Perfect.
No, I think for integrity, it's absolutely honesty with yourself, and then honesty with others, no matter what it costs you.
Yeah,
No matter what it costs you.
yeah.
Like that, it's to say, I'm gonna be honest for the value of that, as opposed to being dishonest and then getting the cost of that, you know? I guess it was easier for me at 16, pleading guilty to a murder charge, you know? I kinda took some levels of honesty on real early, some pretty hard ones that are above everything else. So kinda after that, when people would say, I don't believe you, I'd be like, you really think I have to lie to you? I told the truth on a murder. Do you think I have to lie to you about a soda? You know? So, but it's literally just honesty, and it's not just, you know, speaking in honesty, it's doing things honestly, you know, and not carrying around that corruption in your heart.
Mhm.
of moving forward, because sooner or later it's gonna eat at you. It's gonna eat at, if it's in a relationship, it's gonna eat at your relationship. If it's at work, it's gonna eat at your work. It's just gonna root itself out. But if you do it with honesty, you have a clean, beautiful slate to work with, you know? It's just unmarred, so.
Yeah, and shedding that off and getting rid of that, that's the only way to stop carrying it, right? You gotta own it, you gotta confront it, you gotta have the conversation about it.
And it builds integrity though, when you're just when you make I think it's the sacrifice part of it. It's not the actual honesty. It's the sacrifice that comes with it, and that's what builds the integrity, you know? Because you were honest, or you conducted yourself honestly. And that sacrifice of whatever it is, you know, through hardship, you know, it's like, feel really good about that, you know? Felt
Yeah.
really good about walking out of there.
You know, like Nietzsche says, some men aren't ready for the life-preserving consequences of the truth, right?
Yeah.
And that goes with us too. Like I wasn't ready for the life-preserving consequences of the truth, that I was gonna walk away from something, and there's gonna be some sacrifice. It's gonna be a hardship, but it's the right thing to do.
What's really cool is Ryan Ross jumped on here. He owns Rockview Recovery,
Nice,
and I went out there and spoke a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday.
good stuff.
And man, what a community they have.
Oh, it's beautiful.
They have all three houses that came together. And
Some of the nicest saloons I've ever seen.
yeah, did you speak over there yet?
2 weeks.
You're
November
speaking in 2
3rd,
weeks? Yeah, it's great, and just to see the way the members there, the people that are living in the houses there, the way they all talked and communicated, the feedback we got afterwards, like you can, I've been to halfway houses, right? I've lived in halfway houses, and
Nothing
not,
like that.
not all of them
Nothing
are like
like
that. And like, don't get me wrong, the house is nice, and that's all fine and great, but the community in there, the way those people supported each other,
Yeah.
and talked, and the leadership they had, like Matt, who's my boss at work too, works over there as well. And man, it was great. So Ryan, we're really glad you're here tonight, man. Thanks for stopping in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think another thing is, when we're talking about integrity, is not compromising our values for anything. I think we've got to throw that in there again. I think that's so important, man, is to just stand by what you stand for.
What happens when you do compromise the value? What does that look like?
I'll tell you something that my sponsor told me. You know, in recovery, for example, I've taken years to build this foundation of spiritual armor, you know, of protection against the old me, the old behaviors, the addiction, all that different stuff. And what ends up happening is every time I act on some of these old behaviors, whether it's manipulation, whether it's selfishness, whether it's being deceptive, whatever that case may be, I'm slowly chipping away at that armor that I've built. And eventually, if I don't correct it and stay on track, eventually that armor is gonna rust, it's gonna erode, it's gonna deteriorate. And then all this armor that I've taken all this time to build is no longer gonna be there, and I'm not gonna be safe anymore. And that's why it's important. It's important to protect that foundation that we've built, you know, especially when it comes to recovery. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, because like I know for me, I've made some mistakes. I've gone outside of my values, and it sucks taking ownership for that. I remember I got into something with you a while ago. We talked about it. I'm not going to rehash old shit, but it took me about 2 days to come talk to you about it, because I walked around in shame and guilt and embarrassment and all that other stuff. And
Yeah.
you're one of my best friends,
Yeah.
right? Because we could talk about staying inside our values, but the fact is we're not going to stay inside our values. We're going to do that most of the time,
Right.
but we have to have a plan for those times where we do step out of our values.
And
Because
what is that plan?
for me, it's talking about it.
Absolutely.
That's why I was like,
You gotta
fuck,
have people in your life you can trust.
absolutely.
You gotta have a support system. You gotta have a network. That's why it's so important to have people in your life that you can count on, that are gonna add value, that are gonna give you good counsel. Because if you don't have that, then what? You're left with that same mind that led you to make those decisions.
Absolutely. Leon, what's up, man? Frankie Cano came on there. He said, if you compromise your contentment, you disrespect what you value. And that's true too, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Good
hey,
stuff.
Hey, Kano
stuff.
just explained exactly what happened within a matter of 10 minutes for me last week. And I swear, man, like, I've smiled more this week than I have in a long time.
That's
Absolutely.
good, man.
Yeah.
That's really good. So we're going to get ready here to wrap it up. Ty Wade was back first
Thank you,
time,
Ty.
first time,
Thank you.
first two-time guy on the show. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool, man. Thank you, Ty, for being here.
No disrespect, Frankie.
No disrespect, Frankie. We'll get you up here for your deuce one of these days. For your little deuce. But thanks everybody for being here. You want to close something out on perspective?
No, just I don't know. Realize how important it is. You know, be honest, and you'll develop that lens, and you'll
Absolutely.
develop a lens of honesty, and that'll continue to expand, like you were saying earlier, and project, and you'll create that world that you want. You know,
Absolutely.
you will, and then some. It'll be way bigger than just like this world right now for all of us. I know it's bigger than what we ever expected. I know we have more than we expected. I don't think any of us expected to be in the place we are right now, you know?
No.
at this table doing this, so we're not gonna see how big it can really get, but you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Just keep with integrity and keep seeing it through that lens and seeing what that means and working towards it. And like I said, 5 years from now, what's our goal
Yeah.
gonna be? What's our mission gonna be? What are we gonna, how big is the table gonna be?
Hopefully
Yeah.
a little bit bigger than this one, and our fucking bathroom better get bigger too. It is a good table. But you talked about losing people in your life, right? Sometimes you gotta move on. And I heard this thing today and it was so awesome. You know when a rocket takes off and it's got those boosters that take it to outer space?
Yeah.
And then those boosters die out and they fall off that rocket.
Yeah.
It's nothing personal. Those boosters just weren't able to make it to that level of the atmosphere. You know, and I heard that this morning on a podcast somewhere. It was probably outlawstoadvocates.com. But I heard it this morning on a podcast, and it really put things in perspective, because it's, you know, you talk about people falling off and this and that, they're just not ready for where we're going or where you're going, and it's okay,
Yeah.
right? It's okay. We can outgrow people. We can continue to move forward. It just,
To
Just
go-
like that rocket, man, you know, I'm striving every day to break free from those character defects that have tried to enslave me for so long.
We can
Absolutely.
be patient, kind, and be here when they're ready. That's all we can do.
I'm gonna start by being patient and kind with you as soon as you break out that wallet when we go to Taco Bell.
Taco Boys.
And-
All right.
Yeah.
To add to your rocket thing there is they started catching those rockets now. Elon Musk was the first one to do that. They catch the boosters when they land, and so that's a way you can say, I don't have to worry about either letting go of that person. They're gonna be all right. I need to focus on me. I don't need to carry them and coddle them all the way to the ground either.
That's pretty cool, man.
You know.
Yeah.
I love that. And if you think about perspective, right? Sometimes a lot of us just say, "Oh, it is what it is." Well, if somebody just said, "Oh, gravity is what it is," we can't fly, we're humans. We wouldn't have rockets. We wouldn't have planes. We wouldn't have any of that shit. Chase your ideas. Chase down your dreams. Fuck what everybody else says. Do what you got to do. Maintain that perspective. And more than anything, tune in next week at 7:00.
Yeah.
Next week.
Identify your values, don't compromise them.
Thank you, everybody. All 10 of you. We appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Glad you guys are here.
Tune back in after the music was off.